You're watching Venture Forward, a video series about vehicle-supported adventure, backcountry exploration, and full-time mobile living. Join us as we discover scenic and interesting places both on and off the beaten path. It's early September, Labor Day 2022, and I am outside of Chibougamau, Quebec. I'm settled in at this very improvised roadside campsite next to a lake. It's just a particularly wide section of dead-end road, and I explored down that way. There's nothing down there except for a few dilapidated cabins. So aside from the possibility of a random passerby, I don't think that I'm going to see any traffic at this spot. I opted for this spot for the view. It's got a great view of the lake and a sweeping view of the sky to the north. It's not guaranteed, but I've always wanted to see the Northern Lights. That's a bucket list item, and I figure if there's a possibility, then this is a good spot for it. I woke up this morning in Chibougamau with the intention of continuing driving north. So I left camp and I drove into town to top off on gas, and as I'm driving through town, the Jeep is sort of, what would you call it, stumbling. With light pressure in the gas pedal between 1500 and 2000 RPM going up a mild incline, it just starts to hesitate. When I'm in 4 low or driving over 2000 RPM, it seems fine. The new engine is idling great, it's purring like a kitten. But I thought I cannot continue pushing into more remote territory if I don't trust the Jeep. So that's why I'm based near town, because tomorrow, today's a holiday, I'm going to go into town, stop by a shop or two, and see if I can get someone to take a look at it. You know, I have to laugh because I'm frustrated. I've been trying to get back into the rhythm of adventure, but I need to remind myself that this is the adventure. Jeep trouble in a faraway and unfamiliar place, that's adventure. These aren't as satisfying as they looked in the store. I need ketchup and I don't have any. I think I saw the Northern Lights last night, very faintly at around 10:30 p.m. It was very dim, so I'm not going to check it off my bucket list, but I did have the GoPro running and mounted through the night taking a time-lapse video. So it'll show us if I missed anything through the night, but I don't know. I don't think there was anything. When I made that comment, I hadn't yet seen my GoPro footage. This is a night lapse from my GoPro Hero 8, and I did bump up the brightness and the highlights just a little bit, so this is exaggerated, but it's still very cool. Like I mentioned yesterday, after I'm finished breakfast, I'm going to head into Chibougamau, try to find a shop, a mechanic to take a look at RNG, and then go from there. Even if no one is able to fix the problem on short notice, it would put me at ease knowing what it is and how severe it is. Alright, I found a shop to look at the Jeep in Chibougamau, right across the street from this McDonald's. They were very friendly, they were happy to ride along with me, and acknowledged that yes, there is a weird hesitation problem. And they spent a decent amount of time looking over things. They hooked RNG up to multiple scan tools. There are no codes, and everything appears to be in good working order. So to be perfectly clear, this problem, or the symptoms for the problem, wouldn't normally bother me so much. I wouldn't bat an eyelash over just a minor hesitation. It's only because I was considering going more remote. I didn't want to end up in some remote part of the province and then discover that this minor issue is more severe than I expected. So I guess when it comes right down to it, new engine and all, and I don't think this is an engine problem, by the way. The new engine is running and idling fine. Whatever this problem is, I think it's related to some other component that has 200,000 miles on it. But I don't think I trust the Jeep enough to go really far into the backcountry. And when I say really far, I mean 100 miles or more. So given how this troubleshooting experience was non-productive, I think I'm going to go west from here instead of north. Logging road turns into a narrow ATV track beyond this point. I'm not going to try to squeeze the Jeep down here. I don't know if I could turn around, and also that'd be too impactful. But still, this makes me curious, so I might come back here tomorrow morning and explore it on foot, if the bugs don't eat me during the night. This was an interesting logging road that led to this campsite. Most of the logging roads that I've encountered so far are either gravel highways or put to disuse and being reclaimed by nature. The latter is usually impassable, but this road was more like a Forest Road 2-track. It didn't seem to be put to disuse, but there wasn't any apparent logging activity either, at least recently. So I had a hunch that it led to somewhere, and sure enough, this spacious campsite in what is probably a gravel pit. But it's not a lame gravel pit. It's an inviting flat spot with a fire ring and a large earthen barrier to the south. It's private, there's good protection from the elements, and it is well off the beaten path. I still have a slight limp from my broken foot, but I'm doing okay. I'm off on a hike this morning down that ATV trail that I found last night. And this is a boreal forest. This is very typical for central Quebec. What is fairly atypical from what I've seen is finding a nice, well-maintained ATV trail that runs through it in an area that hasn't been logged. So you can really get a feel for the atmosphere and the density of the vegetation. It's really beautiful. There were some structures at the end of the track, so I turned around and came back to the Jeep. While it was a lovely walk in the woods, this is an access road to someone's private cabins. That's one of the big differences between public land in the States and public land in Canada. In the US, it's federal land and you're not allowed to build on it, but in Canada, I don't know the details of this, so forgive me if I'm wrong. I believe you're allowed to lease a parcel of land and build a hunting cabin or a small camping structure on it. So more often than not, when you find an interesting track in Quebec's backcountry that clearly isn't used for logging, it very likely goes to someone's cabin or an old shack. When I find that to be the case, like I did here, don't trespass, just go back to the Jeep and keep exploring. There's an amazing waterfall in the distance across the river. I don't know if I'm able to get any closer to it with the Jeep, so I've got my long lens on and I'm trying to get a shot of it from here. This is what I love to find. Beautiful places that would be destinations if they were in the front country, but totally off the grid and mostly unknown. If you do travel to Quebec to explore the backcountry, set your expectations. This landscape is first and foremost industrial rather than recreational. You will find beautiful natural features, an occasional dispersed campsite, access to a beautiful lake for fishing or boating, or a magnificent waterfall. But these places are few and far between. This landscape is vast, and you have to do a lot of driving and dig fairly deep to find them. And the people who travel these gravel highways, like the one that I'm on now, are usually here for business, so they have places to be. So you're going to want to stay extremely alert and keep moving. This is not a good place to dilly-dally or to take pictures by the roadside. Just rolled into Val-d'Or, Quebec, and I'm going to see about getting some lunch. Or maybe dinner. It's around It's 2 p.m. That's more lunch. There we go. Mexican food. I have to admit, I thought I was going to a Mexican restaurant. I didn't know at the time that Habaneros was a burrito chain, a lot like Chipotle. Still, it was very good and hit the spot. Tonight's campsite, which is near the city of Val-d'Or, Quebec, is courtesy of iOverlander. It's a passable place to spend the night in a small public park where overnighting is allowed. There are other people here spending the night, in addition to some day visitors, but it's clean, I think it'll be quiet, and it feels safe. In the past 2 days, I covered 240 kilometers or 150 miles of logging roads, and dispersed campsites were few and far between. So by the time I got to town, I just decided to phone it in, look up a campsite on iOverlander, and that's how I ended up here. I spent the better part of the week in Chibougamau, Quebec, which was a really charming northern small town. It's adjacent to the lake of the same name where they do a lot of fishing, and I think during the winter there's a lot of snowmobiling that goes on there. And a highlight for me was Cheddar. Apologies, I have to work on my pronunciations, but that is a microbrewery that I visited one night. And they put spices and ingredients in their beers from the regional boreal forests. I'll put a link to Cheddar in this week's thatch board. Chibougamau is also near the southern terminus of Route du Nord, or the North Road, which is a gravel highway that travels 400 kilometers or 250 miles into northern Quebec. I contemplated running it myself, but that was the point where I wasn't sure about the condition of the Jeep, so I opted not to. But I did drive Route du Nord about 20 kilometers or so just to get a feel for the experience. And it's like I mentioned earlier, people travel that road because it either relates to their livelihood or they're familiar with the area and they know exactly where they're going. So trucks on that road, usually pickup trucks, are moving fast. The gravel road covered in rocks like this was like driving on a bed of marbles, and everyone was going about 30 miles per hour faster than I was comfortable with. Stones hit my windshield almost every time I passed another vehicle, and in fact, in the short distance that I drove, my windshield got a crack right away. I found this decent boondocking site just off of Route du Nord. That's the Barlow River. It's a clearing here. It's near the southern terminus, so it's not too far from town. I'm not spending the night here, but definitely gonna put a pin in it. If you're considering the route, I found a great resource online. I'll put a link to that in the description for this video. I'm gonna call that a wrap for the week, but just as a reminder, my detailed GPS data is available to Patreon subscribers, and points of interest are available on the Thatch app for iOS and Android. I'll put a link to Patreon and Thatch in the description for this video. Thanks for watching, and I'll catch up with you again next week as I continue westward.